Sox in the basement.
And welcome into Sox in the Basement. My name is Chris. 30 minutes of Sox ahead for you. I'm by myself today, though, because Ed had to do some lawyering. He had to go all the way up to Rockford, I think, to do lawyering today. That's his main day job. And so he's off the grid. He's much closer to Wisconsin than here. So it's just me today and you. And I've got all kinds of listener comments and mail and stuff that we haven't gotten to. So we're going to get to that today. The SoxNerd is on, as he is towards the end of each and every week here on Sox in the Basement. There's a bunch of things that we've covered. Interview that we did that I kind of have some follow-up on. There's things going on around the White Sox we haven't been able to cover because there's been so much. So it's kind of a catch-up day here on Sox in the Basement. And the first thing I want to remind you of is we have the $1,000 guest bounty still going on. Pitchers and catchers report next week, but the voting for the $1,000 guest bounty for the best guest of the offseason, there is still time to get in there. So if you have a guest that you think would be amazing on the show, get it in there now. Get that guest in there now. You can win $1,000 from Cork and Kerry at the park at 33rd and Princeton in the shadow of the ballpark with an award-winning menu of burgers and ballpark favorites, spirits, wines, incredible array of taps in there for the beer, lots of craft beers from the area and your favorites that you can get anywhere. Right there, great service. They get you fed. They get you kind of lubricated with that beautiful bar there, and they get you over to the ball game on time. And so I recommend it if you're going to a ball game this year, and you should be going to a ball game this year. All right, first check them out at corkandkerry.com. Then think about it. You should be going to a ball game this year. You should be going to a bunch of them. You know, they're one move away from me really investing in tickets this year. Like I'm going to go. They've piqued my interest, but like I'm there a lot more if they go out and get a starting pitcher. And a real starting pitcher. You really get me if you go out and get yourself that real starting pitcher to add into that rotation. Then I start to get excited, and I think they're still going to do it. I really do. Hold on a second. I got a lot of stuff to read today. If you're watching the YouTube feed and you're watching me on video today, you're going to see me put my readers on. I've never had readers before. Like for the last year, my eye doctor has been like bugging me to put on readers. So I'll either wear my normal glasses, and when I have to read something up close, I have to peer over them, or if I have contacts in, which I've gotten much more used to now that I have the readers, I put these on when I have to read things off the computer screen or off a note in front of me. They're my old man glasses. I got called an old man on Friday because of them. Actually, I was out on a date, and I was out with a woman that was at least 10 years younger than me, and which is weird. I got to tell you something, like. Trust me, like all the guys I know who are married are like, you're dating younger women. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, like I'm surprised by it too. Like I'm 48 years old and like I've actually gone all the way down to 32. I learned right away we didn't have much to talk about, but like it still kind of throws me a little bit. So I'm out and I'm trying to like look young, and I've given up on looking young now. Now I'm just like, they're going to know, they know I'm old. They know it. They accept it. I'm an old guy. I'm 48. I'm pushing 50. But I have to put the readers on. So I put the readers on the other night on the date. I'm at the bar and I'm paying the bill, which first of all, I paid the bill using my money clip. And I got made fun of for that. Like she was just flirting with me. She was joking around, right? She was a cute girl. She was joking around, but she made fun of me. She's like, you don't have Apple Pay? And I'm like, no. You don't want to use a credit card? No. You pay with cash? Yeah. You're like my dad. I felt old. Then I put on the readers and she almost spit her drink out. She was laughing that I was using readers. And then at the end, I put this hat on, my Irish cap. And at that point I had given up. She was like, what do you call that cap? I'm like, that's my old man cap. That's exactly what it is. It's an adventure out there. But now I have readers and I'm accepting it. I'm accepting the fact that I'm an older man who needs to use readers to read things off the computer. Let's go through some of the stuff that's been bouncing around the White Sox. Robert Murray, he's on that podcast with AJ Pierzynski. He's on a bunch of different things, fan-sided. He recently said on an episode of the Baseball Insiders that the White Sox are not done adding this offseason. And this is something that I've been talking about on the show for a little bit now. Local Chicago beat writers, not all of them, but there's a few of them that keep trying to tell you they're done. They keep trying to tell you the White Sox aren't spending any money. They keep trying. I mean, like, there were a lot of them after the Robert trade that were like, they're just good. This is a salary dump. And we kept saying, no, he's going to spend this money. Chris Getz is going to spend this money. Chris Getz is going to go get a starting pitcher. We had James Fox on the last episode, and he said it. He was like, there's a pitcher. I really believe they're getting a pitcher. In fact, Zach Littell is the guy that he said he was hearing that name. And James has been right on guys that the White Sox go out and get. He seems to every once in a while get a little tidbit of information. When he tells me that that's a name, I go, I hope it is. In fact, this is the perfect way to kind of like jump into the listener comments. If you look at that last show on our YouTube page, I'll go to. Joshua wrote they should 100% get Littell for 3 years, 12 to 15 million a year. I've been telling people for weeks they need to get him. If they get that guy, if they get a guy of that caliber, they're going to win 78 to 84 wins. I mean, that's bullish. 81 wins is 500. So in your range, Joshua, you're like, they could be over 500. But I love that 78 number. Like, I really do. I'm with you. Because here's the thing when you look at the rotation. First, let's look at Zach Littell, a guy who I think they should go out and spend money on. This is not being heavily in on him. And if they're not willing to make the deal that was just described or something that's maybe for a little bit more money. On a guy who, I want to look up his age real quick, on a guy who's 30 years old. I mean, 3-4 year contract for this guy is not a bad thing. I mean, his resume over the last couple of years, he's my kind of pitcher. Last year between two teams, the Rays and the Reds, a 1.104 whip, walks and hits per innings pitch. He keeps guys off base. The year before that, one full year in Tampa Bay, a 1.247. Still good. I always say if a starting pitcher is lower than a 1.3, that guy keeps guys off base. That's what the White Sox need. That's what all pitching staffs need. The year before that, some out of the pen, some as a starter, 1.149 whip. He had an ERA the last 3 years under 4, in the 3s. This guy, there's a reason the Rays liked him. By the way, remember you brought in an assistant general manager from the Rays system just recently. The Rays are attached to trying to get him back. I mean, I really hope by the time this show airs that it's not like the Rays got him. But the Sox should be in on this guy. This is perfect. This is what you go get. And if you're not able to go do this, and it's because your owner has put a salary cap on your team, that's a problem. See, I get a lot of people in the comments, and we're going to go through some of the comments today. I think I'll ignore the ones that are like this, but I get a lot of people in the comments that are always like, you're just always harping on Jerry Reinsdorf. Why would they spend all this money? You're going to block players. You're not blocking anybody with a move like this. And, you know, there's 3 outfield positions and injuries happen all the time. You're not blocking players. You're not blocking prospects by adding Austin Hayes. And you wouldn't be blocking prospects if you add Zach Littell. You have a lot of space available there. You're not really blocking prospects right now if you would have added an infielder. Like I had the pie in the sky idea of going and getting Bo Bichette. Because I said, well, he can stand at third, he can stand at second, you can put him at short and move Montgomery. But I mean, he's so young. Like imagine giving him a monster deal. They could afford it. If Jerry Reinsdorf wanted to spend money, they could afford it. And they don't go and do those kind of things. Those are the things that frustrate me, right? You could still build a team and say, I'm going to give a guy a long-term contract who's going to be a rock on my team because I intend to compete in 27. And I think the front office intends to compete in 27. It all depends on this looming labor issue. But I think they're itching to be competitive in 27. I mean, I think that's what the plan is. I think when you look at how they're using Grant Taylor, and we're going to get into that in a moment, this year, and how they use Mike Vassell, and the way that they're looking ahead at finding more and more starting pitching to get in there. Circle 27. 27, they're a 500 or better team if they continue on the trajectory they're on. Heck, they're a team competing for the postseason. They're going to have to deal with the Tigers, who just went out and got Framber Valdez and intend to win. That with signing Framber Valdez, that tells me the Tigers want to win this year. All right, but we're not trying to do that. We're just trying to get better. And before you yell at your podcast player or write a comment in the YouTube that how do I know that Jerry Reinsdorf has the money? This is one of the things we missed on over the last week or so. There was a graph tweeted out, took a lot of crap. I mean, the graph itself took a lot of crap because of the point that was trying to be made. Ben Verlander, was he brother brother to Justin Verlander. You know, he's a baseball personality. He was trying to point out how the Dodgers aren't the problem with their high payroll because they put 3/4 of their revenue back into the team. And he put a list of all the revenue of all the teams in Major League Baseball last year, and then how much money they put into their salaries this year. And at the time this was put out there, the Sox had not spent all of the money. I want to say that this was put out there right before Sir Anthony Dominguez was signed and everything after that. So they hadn't spent the Robert money. I believe that's where that sits. And he had the White Sox for $277 million in revenue last year and only spending $87 million of it on payroll. They're not losing money. If you look at this chart, you go, they're not losing money. Now, a lot of the things that people pointed out was, well, you don't understand the operating cost of a baseball team. They got to pay rent. They got to pay staff. They got a lot more things they got to pay there than just the salary of the baseball players. But remember the sweetheart deal where Jerry Reinsdorf really isn't paying for that stadium. Unlike all the other teams on this list, he's got a great deal when it comes to how much money he's got to spend every year to be in that ballpark. And so when you put that knowledge in there, and you notice that most Major League Baseball teams on this list are spending 45% or more of their revenue on salaries in the following year for their baseball team, and the Sox are sitting at about 30%, I think it's fair for me to sit there and say, yeah, you should be chasing Zach Littell. Yeah, it's okay for you to go sign a player, especially if he's going to be around for a couple years, because you intend to be good in a couple years, and he's only 30 years old. That's the guy I want, man. I want that rock in the middle of my rotation. I think it changes absolutely everything for this team. I think it makes them it's serious then at that point. They're a much improved team. Go out, get your popcorn, and watch the young guys develop and get better, and watch them win more games. And I think the bullpen's going to be really good. And I think a lot of those losses they took last year because they had a bad bullpen, they don't happen this year. And I think the over-under, which got them at about mid-60s in wins, is way off. I think they're at least a 70-some win team. So yeah, maybe I'm as gung-ho as Joshua in the YouTube comments. Maybe if they go out and get Littell, they really are a team that's 78 to 84 wins. God, wouldn't that be? That'd be a blast. That'd be incredible. For exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high-pressure sales, not in your kitchen, not in your living room, not putting their feet up on your couch or the dog. Instead, you go in and see them. You're not looking at an example window to sit in the salesperson's trunk and half the features don't work, and he's just showing you pictures in a book and telling you, imagine this. You're going to spend all this money on your home, but I can't really show you what it's going to look like. Instead, you go into Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, you see exactly what it's going to look like. You get to ask an owner all your questions because there's an owner on site when they do the install, and there's also an owner inside of the store to answer all those questions. They use all of their own installers. They don't farm out the work. They've been doing it that way in Oak Forest since 1985 with all major brands, custom made and no stock items for a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, the half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. Let's take a look at more of the comments out there. We'll go to the show 2 episodes ago, The Science of Making Better White Sox Hitters. That was a fun interview. If you haven't seen that one, the last 2 shows I really liked. I really liked the insight from James Fox on Sox Fest and what some of their plans are. And I really like sitting down with those guys at Court Carey at the park who did this study. I mean, I saw some of the snarky comments. What's the big deal? They did something everybody else is doing. The big deal is the fact they never did this stuff. They didn't do biomechanical studies. And supposedly, I already got, after we did the interview, it was before it even aired, I was told. They had just gotten commissioned by the Sox to do another study. So the White Sox really want to learn everything they can about hitting and how they improve hitters, how they develop hitters, how they identify hitters that they can tweak some little thing. Jared Kelenic becomes very interesting because of this. And some of the other guys that were right on the cusp, AAA, maybe had a cup of coffee in the majors and now are going to be sitting there competing to make this roster during spring training. Those guys all become much more intriguing when you understand that they have a plan, or at least they're trying to develop a plan of finding like a prototypical White Sox hitter and a White Sox approach. And one of the comments that we got was right about that. Seth wrote, great podcast. I appreciate the two greats. And he used proper punctuation. There were commas in there. Wonderful job. Keep up the good work. Appreciate your time and passion. Fascinating listening to these guys explain their work. Their authenticity and sincerity was apparent. One clarification, way before the analytics era, there was kind of a White Sox way of hitting under the guidance of Walt Horiniak and Charlie Lau. Okay, listen, that's possible. I kind of responded back like it was more of like they had a style. Like they had that breakaway thing. Like Frank Thomas did that. He had that breakaway thing where the bat would go forward and that backhand would almost detach from the bat where it looked like a one-handed swing, but it wasn't one-handed until after they had made contact with the ball. You saw a lot of hitters doing that. And approach-wise, they did certain things back then with those guys. So yeah, you're right. There was a way that they taught that was unique. But I think this is a little different because I think what this is saying, okay, it's increasing bat speed. How do we do it? What are the little things we can teach guys? Because we want to improve home runs, make better contact, put balls into the gap, but not turn into 3 outcome players where you're just swinging for the fences, striking out, or walking. And so that's the kind of approach this is. So I see that. And remember, Horiniak came back to help out Frank Thomas. Whenever he was in a slump, he would just call Walt, even if he wasn't his hitting coach anymore, to get him back on track. So there was definitely something that at least resonated with a first ballot Hall of Famer who was slighted. That's another thing we never got to on the show over the last couple of weeks. Frank Thomas was slighted. Do you think that that's the White Sox, or do you think that that's the social media guy not knowing what he's doing? You know, like I've worked with other places before that had their own social media, and sometimes like the person that's putting it together is the one that makes the mistake. Like I can't imagine they had a meeting, right? Like I can't imagine the White Sox had a meeting for Black History Month and said, we want to feature all these players and all these moments. And they're not first. Like that's the thing. Like Frank was not the first Black MVP. Okay. But there was a lot of people who was the second to do this or was a prominent player on the White Sox. Okay. Who was African-American and said, and like should have been, was on the list. They were on the list. No picture of Frankie's a footnote underneath Dick Allen. And he gets so upset about it. He writes, I guess the black player who made you rich over there and holds all your records is forgettable. Don't worry, I'm taking receipts. It's not a joke. Frank's pissed. And I get why he's pissed. Like, I get why he's angry. Kenny Williams makes that graphic that the White Sox social media group put out to start off Black History Month. He makes that graphic 3 times. Like, I would laugh about that more if he was still there, because I would like, Kenny made sure he was on it 3 times. Like, that would have been the explanation, right? And Kenny didn't want to put Hurt on there. Because if you were paying attention, there were a lot of times those two didn't seem to get along very much. I mean, again, he probably should have kept Frank after 2005. I still contend that I would have rather have seen Frank Thomas, who was healthy and ready to continue to contribute. I would have kept him around. I wouldn't have shipped him off and changed things. I think that was a mistake by Kenny Williams. But Kenny makes the list 3 times. I get why Frank is upset. I also laughed that Bruce Levine, who is a mouthpiece for this organization. I mean, he really is. I know he's a journalist, sports journalist, and he gets some inside information. He probably gets the inside information because of how friendly he is to people on the team. He's very friendly to Jerry Reinsdorf. I mentioned this last week. He breaks down all the money that's been spent since Robert was traded. And then he, for some reason, uses the last 6 words, the last few characters of his tweet, to write big market with little revenue streams, to try to counteract that graphic that I was just talking about, or anybody else that sits there and says they should be spending more. Well, yeah, they're a big market, but they have little revenue streams. Not according to the thing that I read earlier today. Sure, it's not as big as other teams, but you're not spending the percentage of your revenue that other teams in Major League Baseball are spending. And you know, if we were wrong, if I was wrong about this, if this large majority of the fan base that feels this way, that the owner doesn't spend the money the way he should, and that he is cheaping out, if that was wrong, they'd call a press conference and they'd break it down for you. If that was wrong after all these years, somebody would sit there and contradict it. they wouldn't pare down Sox Fest, take away fan questions that aren't pre-screened, and weed out much of the common fan base and make it far more friendly to the team. They would be very open and they would just say, you're wrong, and here's the proof that you're wrong. And we wouldn't be able to find these things. We wouldn't have former general managers that sit around and say things like, oh, Jerry Reinsdorf once told me it's better to come in second place, or whatever that exact quote was, right? David Sampson was on this show and talked about it a couple years ago. Like, you wouldn't have those things if it wasn't true. But Bruce wants to make sure you hear that it's a big market with little revenue streams. He also wanted you to make sure that you understood they were going to do more with Frank Thomas as Black History Month went on. Like, that's something the PR department should release, but Bruce Levine released it instead in a tweet. I think on the exact same day that he was also talking big market with little revenue stream. He was doing a lot of work that day for the White Sox PR machine. He was. But if you missed it, that was something else that happened. That was a real thing. Let's hear from the Sox Nerd. That music means the Sox Nerd. Dave Marin is on the line with his nuggets and trivia and all the stuff that he puts up on the scoreboard at the rate during the season. I'm sure he is getting ready for another season of White Sox baseball, and he's probably got so much that he can share, but he's trying it out each and every week and throughout the season, during the offseason, right here on Sox in the Basement. He's brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. See the Lamont Unlocked podcast. I've had some fun on that show. The last couple episodes have been an absolute blast. I'm hosting it. I got a great co-host when she's able to make it onto that show, and we have so much fun. You can learn all about Lamont and see our escapades there at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Fellas, how about a few morsels on recent White Sox signee relief pitcher Seranthony Dominguez? The 2026 White Sox preemptive closer, Dominguez converted 11 of his 13 save chances for the Orioles last season. After being peddled to the Blue Jays, the righty went 2 for 5, leaving his career save success rate at 67%. That's 40 for 60. With the Phillies, he was 25 of 33 on saves between 2018 and 2023. His best year as a closer was in 2018 when he set the Phillies' rookie record with 16 saves. Regular listeners of this quality podcast know that the Nerd loves the first batter faced and inherited runner stats for relievers. I'm happy to report Dominguez fares well in both departments, which means you'll see these stats on the board at the rate this season because that is how I roll. Dominguez is limiting the first batter he faces to a slash line of 194, 286, and 289 in his career. Last year, those numbers read 169, 269, and 237. Dominguez stranded 30 of the 34 base runners he inherited. That's 88% last season. For his career, Dominguez has stranded 67% of the base runners he's inherited. I'm thinking, though, if Seranthony is the closer, hopefully he won't be dealing with many inherited runners. He'll just pitch the ninth, send us all home happy as Sweet Home Chicago serenades us out of right field. Other numbers? His ninth-inning opponent's batting average is 189, but that has been drifting up over the last few seasons. Dominguez averaged at least 10 strikeouts per 9 innings in 5 of his 7 big league seasons, and he has allowed fewer hits than innings pitched in each of his 7 major league campaigns. Righties hit 179 against Dominguez, while that number reached 248 for lefties. If the Sox ever make it to the playoffs, Seranthony is their guy. He is 4-0 with 1 save and a 1.86 ERA in 29 postseason games. Only Lefty Gomez and Hilton Smith with 6 each, and Jack Combs and Herb Pennock with 5 each have more postseason wins without a loss than Dominguez's 4. Dominguez began his playoff career with 18 strikeouts and no walks, which are the most strikeouts before issuing a walk by any pitcher to start a postseason career. Some Seranthony oddities. He was traded by the Orioles to the Blue Jays between games of a day-night doubleheader between the teams in Baltimore on July 29th of last season. After making the walk from one clubhouse to the other following Game 1, Dominguez tossed a shutout inning for Toronto in the nightcap. All of Dominguez's 322 big league appearances have been in relief. His last win as a starter came for the Phillies' Class A Clearwater affiliate on August 22, 2017. In that Florida State League clash against Fort Myers, Dominguez fired 6 shutout innings while giving up 2 hits with 6 strikeouts. After facing just 2 over the minimum, Dominguez gave way to Tyler Gilbert, who was on track to be a Sox teammate in 2026. Dominguez drew a walk as a batter before issuing a walk as a pitcher. He walked in his first career plate appearance in the top of the 9th for the Phillies on June 6, 2018 at Wrigley Field. In the bottom of that frame, Dominguez issued his first big league walk to Kyle Schwarber, who was the 49th batter he faced. Dominguez has never faced the same batter twice in a big league game. The last batter Dominguez faced twice in any game was Fort Myers' Brandon Lopez for Clearwater on August 22, 2017. Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you, gems like these and others are available on my blog, which you can access at SoxInTheBasement.com. I am also posting daily on X and Threads. My zinger: David Sandlin, acquired from Boston recently, made his Double-A debut for the Red Sox Portland, Maine affiliate on July 28, 2024, and his catcher that day was Kyle Teal. Sandlin started, gave up 2 hits and 1 run with no walks and 3 strikeouts, but received no decision against the Somerset Patriots. That's it, fellas. Probably more than you wanted to know about my favorite relief stats and Sir Anthony oddities.
Back some listener comments before we get out of here. Craig wrote on our YouTube feed a couple episodes ago, I know a highlight film isn't the most representative way of seeing a player's defensive abilities, but to me, it looks like the often forgotten Tristan Peters, acquired in a trade from Tampa Bay in December, could come out of nowhere and possibly make a run at the starting center field spot. He can catch the ball. And in 259 games and 890 at-bats in AAA, he hit .253 with a .350 on-base percentage, slugged .417 for a .767 OPS. He went 0 for 12 in the majors and is finally going to get possibly an opportunity with the Sox. You know, Ed likes him too. If he was here when we were reading this, he would tell you the exact same. He likes him too. He likes him a lot. I don't know enough about him. I do know that they've gone out and they've gotten several players that are right there. And it will be so interesting. I think the outfield competition is going to be a blast. I think the bullpen competition is going to be really interesting. And I think the starting pitching, the rotation, there's a lot more going on there than you realize. Yes, they have to go out and get another starter. But even as it stands right now, things are not guaranteed for people. I mean, Sean Newcomb, I think, is going into the bullpen. Grant Taylor, according to Scott Merkin in a recent article, was talking about the fact that the goal for Grant Taylor is 100 innings. And the idea is they don't want him late in games. They want him pitching multiple innings. They want him to be Mike Vassell. They want him to do what Mike Vassell did in his first year in the majors, which was last year. And looking at Mike Vassell just last year, a 1.248 whip. He had 47 appearances, 3 starts in there. He never went more than 4 innings. He had a 2.85 earned run average. And he pitched 101 innings. And if you read what Merck's talking about, that the idea is to get Grant Taylor 100 innings because he could be a starter in 27. And they want to get him there. They're not going to go out and say, we guarantee he's a starter in 27. But they'd like to get him there. And then you remember James Fox and Elijah Evans from Future Sox in previous episodes talking about how Grant Taylor is not just a starter potential, but he's a top of the rotation potential if he can put it all together. And that's the path they want to get him to. You don't know if they're going to get him there. Development is not linear. Prospects always go off the rails somewhere. You have no idea. But this is the next step for him. Putting that all together and looking at what they did with Vassell and understanding that they want to do the same thing almost says to you that Mike Vassell's getting a real shot at the rotation. And that could be, I mean, seriously, if you go and sign that starting pitcher, hopefully Zach Littell, but it could be somebody else, right? They go get Bassett. They go do a Martin Perez deal, which would not excite me at all. I feel like at that point it's like everything was great and then you kind of fumble it at the end. But as we get closer to spring training, and there's so many pitchers out there, and the music's going to stop, and they won't have a chair. And a smart starting pitcher would look back at the statistics that surround starting pitchers that hold out and don't sign until the middle or back end of spring training, and the bad starts they get off to. And teams are aware of this too. You would think these guys want to get signed in the next week or so and get in the camp. This is the time to strike. When there's so many of them still out there, if you have the money, if you have the means, if you're really going to add somebody, now's the time to do it. But let's say they add that other starting pitcher into their rotation. And you already know that Davis Martin and Shane Smith are in there. And you already know that they want to give Anthony Kay an opportunity to be a starter. And that's 4 spots. You know, Sean Burke better watch out for Mike Vassell. If you do that, you make so much competition for that 5 spot. And think about it. The bullpen is so flush with players. They've got 2 Rule 5 guys in there that they want to fit in, along with Jordan Hicks, who they just picked up. They're going to play him. They're going to pitch him. They got Sir Anthony Dominguez in there. They got Jordan Leisure in there. Grant Taylor's in there. They don't want him in the back end. They want him doing multiple innings. I mean, right now, I think Fangraph says Brandon Eisert is probably making it in there, but that's really going to be Sean Newcomb, right? I mean, all you need is Vassell. Well, no, Eisert will get in there because he's a lefty. So, yeah, I mean, and Newcomb's a lefty. Oh, yeah. Okay. So now, in reality then, with all those names in there, if Vassell becomes a starter, that's how one of the many other relief pitchers that are trying to get in there make the team. So if the competition is fierce and Vassell pitches very well and they want him to be a starter, and then some of these relief pitchers that aren't in the projections but are like coming up, that are part of this competition, because there's a lot of other names that are out there that they went out and acquired this offseason. And one of those guys forces their way in and finds their way in there. And you look at some of the starters they have. I mean, don't forget Duncan Davitt, who they acquired in the trade with Tampa Bay. Don't forget Tanner McDougal's trying to make this team. Could be a starter. Jonathan Cannon's sitting out there. Chris Murphy, left-handed pitcher, acquired in the trade with Boston back in November. David Sandlin, they just got him from Boston. Man, we take a lot of players from Boston. I hope they all work out. It'll piss off Boston fans. They're just going to continue to grind their teeth like that they gave away all this talent. And we got the Kyle Teals and the Chase Mydroths and Braden Montgomery's going to get here. What if David Sandlin becomes a good pitcher? Like, there's so many pitchers, right? Like, the starting rotation is going to be fascinating. And it becomes even more fascinating, more secure, and stronger if you add that one more starting pitcher. Because then you're looking at Anthony Kay as he's also in competition and it's not guaranteed. And it's not like they're giving him a ton of money if it doesn't work out or he ends up in the bullpen. And when you eventually get some of these named prospects down there like Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, when Drew Thorpe eventually works his way back, if he's got it, Littell or another starting pitcher is not blocking anyone. What that creates then is real competition between starters where the best of the best rise and the other ones sit in the minors till they're able to take a job. And when you get to that level, if these young guys get better, if you listen to the plan with Grant Taylor and Mike Vassell, if you listen to what we talked about a couple of shows ago with those guys and the approach to hitting, 27 is exciting and 26 is fun. One move away. I'm telling you right now, say it with me. One move, sign that starting pitcher, and let's get the camp.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.